Well, we are only a few hours away from a brand new year of 2024. And I hope each of you has a blessed new year. And I hope you close this year out well. And I think I've told you before that I always really enjoy the beginning of a new year. It is a time of optimism. It is a time when I think about planning. It's a time when I think about possibilities. Do all of you do that? Oh, I know. I know the year of 2024 will have, like every other year, its difficulties and hardships and heartbreaks, and plus it's a major election year for our country. But still, I like to think about the possibilities and all the things that could happen. And one of my coworkers sent to me yesterday a couple of photographs. His name is Dr. Brian Starr. He's our chief academic officer at Oklahoma Christian. He and I work together in Lubbock. He's been over there about 6 months now. But I want you to look at the first picture that he sent to me. That squirrel is on the corner of the building. Just under that eave is my office. Now the second picture. These are actual pictures he took yesterday morning, and he sent to me a one-line statement saying, "May our leaps of faith be so bold and our landing be so soft." And that's the way I like to look at the beginning of a new year. And for our lesson this morning, you know that for the entire year of 2023, we have been in the book of John. Except last Sunday, we deviated from that. And I'm going to deviate from that again this Sunday. Now, the Lord willing, next week we return for a few more lessons in the end of the book of John. But I wonder if you can think back. Do you remember the title? Did anyone see the title of that lesson? It's different from what's in your bulletin, because as I got into this material a little bit more, I decided the better title, though titles mean nothing, was this idea, the prayer of a helpless man. And so I want to take you back for a moment to an old story in the book of 2 Kings, chapters 18 and 19. Now, just a bit of history. You know that it was under the day of Joshua's leadership that the 12 tribes entered into the promised land. And for the next many years, they had their struggles, but they would try to conquer Canaan land. And finally, they had kings. And they had a king named Saul, and they had this wonderful king named David, and they had a king named Solomon, and then they had Solomon's son. And do you remember that during the reign, short into the reign of Solomon's son, Rehoboam, that the 10 tribes had a major division? 12 tribes had a major division, and 10 of the tribes are at the north, and they retain the name Israel. 2 tribes in the south call themselves Judah. And in the northern kingdom of Israel, they had really bad leadership. Every king, one after another, was increasingly wicked. To the south, the same was the case, except for once in a while, they would have a king who would come to power who was a really good king, who would call the people back to God. Now, in 2 Kings chapters 18 and 19, it's about one of those southern kings who's a really good king. His name is Hezekiah. Now, he's what you and I would call a restorationist king. He's calling people back to follow the laws that had been given to Moses. He's calling people back to live according to how David taught them to live. He's a really good king. In fact, if you want to know the heart of this king, look at verses 5 and 6 of chapter 18, 2 Kings. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. There was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. Now that's quite a statement. And you know that I really, really want to learn more and more how to trust God, because I think trusting God is the secret, as you well know, to joy and to peace in this life. And Hezekiah trusted God. And he called people back, it will tell you, to follow the laws of Moses and to hold steadfast. That's what he does. He holds fast to these commands that God had given. He's a wonderful person. But only a few years into his reign as king, only a half a dozen years into his reign as king, the Assyrians come against the northern group called Israel. It's according to God's design. And the king of the Assyrians is named Sennacherib. And he's the world power. And he takes the northern kingdom into captivity. And I assume he kills many, and he brings the others into his control. And he just kept doing that. He just kept doing that to other nations. But the nation of Israel will never be again. The Assyrians take them away forever. And now a few more years pass, only a few. And this Assyrian king, Sennacherib, decides to do the same thing to the southern kingdom of Judah. And he moves his vast army against Hezekiah. And he captures 10 of his fortified cities. Now, these are powerful cities. They're the kind of cities that you're not supposed to attack easily. But Sennacherib has no problem. His army is massive. And Hezekiah knows he has a problem. And at this point in the story, and I'm only telling you the highlights of the story, it's a very detailed story. But at this point, I think Hezekiah makes a mistake. And I'm kind of glad he made the mistake for this reason. As much as I want to learn how to put my confidence and trust in God, there are moments in my life when I just fail at that. And I don't do it as well as I would like. And I begin this worry thing too much. And Hezekiah decides he'll try to make peace with Sennacherib by buying his way out of it. He gathers together massive amounts of gold and silver. He even goes to the temple and strips the gold plating off the doorpost. And he gives this massive amount of wealth to Sennacherib. But have you ever heard that old statement? You can't do business with the devil. Have you ever heard something like that? It just won't work. When you have someone who is so evil and someone who is so mean and someone who wants to do you harm, you can give them all the wealth that you have, and they're not going to like you one bit better. I've tried that with employees who do not like me. Can you imagine an employee not liking me? Can you imagine anyone not liking me? And I've had them. And I've tried to do things and good things, and it doesn't change one single thing. And it doesn't change a thing for Hezekiah. He takes all of his wealth, and then he sends some messengers to Jerusalem. And as they're coming near, Hezekiah sends some of his royal officials out to meet them. You know what the messengers say? You need to give up, Hezekiah. Those are my words. That's my paraphrase. You just need to give up. You need to join under me. I've conquered this land and this land and this land. He names a bunch of them through his messengers. You just need to give up. You need to come under me. I'll take care of you. And if you think some other king's going to come and help you, like the king of Egypt called Pharaoh, if you think he will come and help you, he's like a reed I'll snap in two. And if you think your God is going to save you, it won't happen. These other nations I've conquered, they had gods too, and they all got conquered. And now the people are getting up on the walls of the city and they're listening. And the royal officials of Hezekiah begin to talk to the messengers and say, speak in Aramaic. Don't speak in Hebrew where they can understand you. And these people from the Assyrian king say, no, we'll speak in Hebrew. We want them to understand. And now he repeats what they've said. And he said, you need to join us. Nobody can save you from our king Sennacherib. He will destroy you completely. And if you think someone like Pharaoh is going to help you, I'll break him like I would a reed. And your God is not going to do you any good. Now, you know what they're doing. They're inciting fear into the hearts of the people. So if he can make all the people, all the masses afraid, they'll turn on a leader like Hezekiah, and they will not want to follow Hezekiah. And Hezekiah now is wondering, what do I do? He's already captured 10 of my cities. So he sends word to the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah will respond and say, you don't need to worry. This man has blasphemed the God of heaven. It's not going to work for him. A bit of reassurance. But now, Hezekiah does something that I think is exceedingly special. It's what I call the prayer of a helpless man. Now listen very carefully. As much as I am optimistic about 2024, and I really am optimistic about a lot of things, and as much as I'm planning and thinking and dreaming, I am well aware that there are going to be moments in 2023, just like there were moments in 2024, moments like there were in 2023, where I find myself not knowing which way to turn. And I don't know what to do. And the answer as to what to do when you have those moments is right here. Let's read this prayer, somewhat lengthy, together. Look at his prayer. Hezekiah has received the letter from the messengers. He's read it himself. Then he went up to the temple of the Lord and spread it out before the Lord. And he prayed, Lord, God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Did you see the words of praise in there? You see those words of praise? Now give ear, O Lord, and hear. Please listen to me. That's what he's saying. Please listen to me. And see. And listen to the words Sennacherib has sent to ridicule the living God. He's not just ridiculing me. He's not ridiculing my people. He's ridiculing you, God. He's saying you can't do anything about this. Listen to this. Watch it. It's true, O Lord, that the Assyrian king has laid waste to these nations and their lands. It's true. He's a mighty king. They have thrown their gods into the fire and destroyed them, but they were not gods. They were only gods of wood and stone, fashioned by humans' hands. They weren't you. That's what he's saying. Now, Lord, our God, deliver us from his hand, so all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, Lord, are God. that you alone are the one. Now think back about this past year. Have you had any moments where you did not know which way to turn? Have you had any moments where it seemed hopeless, helpless, and you go to God with it? And we've done that right here in the building with various people, where it seemed hopeless and helpless, and we go to God. And now the announcement is made this morning about a person I don't know who owns and runs a sale barn at Clinton, who has a massive cancer in his throat. And according to Greg Turner this morning, may not make it. And they're turning and asking what? Will you help? Can you remember the result of all this? Can you remember the end of the story? What happens? Now, Sennacherib's army is really big, apparently. An army gathered together like you and I probably haven't seen. But God sends, now watch this, God sends one angel. One angel. If you ever doubt how powerful God is, if you ever wonder about those words that Jesus will speak, with you, Father, all things are possible. Think about this. He sends one angel. And one angel that night passes through the army of Sennacherib and kills 185,000 soldiers. How big was the army? I don't know. But one angel. What if he had sent 10,000 angels? One angel kills 185,000. You know what Sennacherib does? In my words, he ducks his head and goes home. Never to return against Hezekiah. Because he's just met far more than his match. He has just met the God who created the heaven and the earth. The God with whom all things are possible. Does that not warm your heart? Does that not make you excited? And so as we end this year of 2023, I can't even get my years right, even right now. It's 2023, we're ending. It's 2024, we're beginning. Everybody got that? You'll write that on your checks tomorrow. But as we begin, how do we apply such a thought? When we're thinking such big thoughts and wonderful thoughts and being so positive. Well, I have big plans. I plan already to know there are going to be moments when I'm at my, as we say, wit's end. I just don't know what to do. That could happen before tomorrow evening sun sets. But I plan on trying my best to trust God with all my heart and to follow Him. And then I wonder about this. I wonder how it fits us. In a little town like Cordell, there are other people listening this morning. Burke showed me this morning that how many people listen from Lubbock and from other places. He got all kinds of data back there. Interesting thing is people turn me off about 5 minutes into my talk. Most people don't listen very long. But in our little town, over the last few weeks, let's say 3 or 4 weeks, I have been in at least 3 or 4 conversations. And the conversations sound like this. Well, our infrastructure is really bad. Water and sewer and electricity. And our businesses are leaving. and we're having problem with revenue. And the moral climate of our community is declining. And a conversation about our school system having difficulty. And as a result, all of the churches in town, every single one of them decline in membership. And we get older, not younger. And I've heard our two elders say, if we don't bring in people like this row right back here, Shane and Cody and Kyla and Andrew, and if we don't teach them, we don't bring in younger, in 10 years, what will we look like? What will Ken Boggs look like in 10 years? What will Ken Jones look like in 10 years and 20 years? What will be left? And you look at the whole situation, you say, it seems so hopeless. It seems so helpless. But in a place like this, how many people need the message of Jesus Christ? And how many people need to hear about the God who did create the heaven and the earth? And the God who will refuse to be blasphemed for very long? And the God who can send one angel and destroy 185,000 people just like that? How many people need to hear? And you know what they say in church growth? I've heard it for years. You got to have the right preaching style, and you got to have the right singing, and you got to have the right space in your building, and you got to have the right kind of parking lot, and the list goes on. And I'm thinking, they don't know rural America. They don't know the plight. So maybe the answer is not us. Maybe the answer is not Ken Jones. Maybe the answer is not any one person. Maybe the answer is to say to God, we don't know what the future holds, and it apparently looks really badly for us. But will you open the door? Think about what young people could come into this auditorium and learn from Scripture, and what you could teach them. Why not? And so, yes, we're going to finish the Gospel of John in 2024. It won't take a long time. We're near the end. We've been in it longer than a year now. And I've threatened, I don't know how many times, to go to the book of Nehemiah. I think I will. Because you know the key to the book of Nehemiah? Oh, it's unbelievable what happens to a broken down city. It's unbelievable, except that God makes it happen. And you know how He makes it happen? Oh, yes, there's good leadership there. It's a book about leadership, but not nearly as much as it's a book about prayer. Not nearly as much as it is a book about asking God to take care of the situation over and over and over again. And God does. And God does. I don't know what He wants. Maybe His intention is for the city to go away, and maybe it is for this church to go away. I don't know. But shouldn't we be begging Him? And listen to this. He gave us that right because He sent His Son to die. He sent His Son to live, to teach, to be an example, and then to die. And then He raised Him from the dead, and He said, now it's through Him and because of Him that you have a right to be in my kingdom, and you can speak directly to me, and you can talk to me, and I will listen. And I kind of think we have fallen into the American trap of trying to do everything on our own. And thinking we have to be the ones who make everything happen. And if that's the case, then we have nowhere to go except down. So we ask God. I hope 2024 is a year of asking God to change us, to build us personally, and to do with us through this congregation what he wants to do. And it's all because God sent his Son and made it possible. He put a stamp on it saying, I love you this much. I care this much. I've not gone this far, is what he says in the book of Romans, of giving you my Son if I will not take care of the rest. And so that's part of the reason why we every Sunday pause and we take the Lord's Supper and we remember that that's what he did. He gave us his Son. And if he gave us his Son, Paul will say, will he not also give us everything else that we need?